Hello there, sword fans. Today I'm returning to a review on this sword right here, or what was this sword, which is the Kataku Budo Katana, which was sent to me some time ago for the purposes of review. I've already done a review on it though, and I would encourage you to watch it. It's going to be linked in the description down below, and it's going to contain my thoughts and opinions on all of the things and close-ups and all of the stuff I typically do in a review, and the things that I hope you would want to see in a review because I spent a lot of time making it. Anyway, this video is dedicated specifically to the breaking and abuse of this sword and nothing really else. Do keep in mind that this was sent to me for the purposes of review by Kataku Budo. Do know that it's dangerous. I wouldn't recommend it. If you choose to do it, then don't expect your sword to survive it, and obviously protect yourself. Also, no, I do study swordsmanship, but I'm not very good at it. I'm a novice. These are just my thoughts and opinions, and while I'm calling this destruction testing, it's not really testing because there's no scientific methodology applied. It's just putting the sword through its paces to see how much it can take before it breaks. So, with those caveats in mind, I hope the video is helpful. Now, as promised, I'm returning to the Kataku Budo Katana, that I reviewed earlier. Now, this sword held up in my mind in all the ways that it was supposed to. So now I'm going to abuse it until it breaks. I'm going to strike it into some wood. I'm going to strike it into our guest star Anathar right here, and we will see how well it holds up. Now, what am I expecting? I'm honestly expecting it to do pretty well against the log here. I don't expect that it'll break. It might bend, but I don't expect it to break. And then when I take it to the sword v sword, kind of all bets are off. It might snap in a strike against the sword. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it lasts multiple strikes. If it gets to that point, I'm going to turn it around, I'm going to bang it against the back. There'll probably be a lot of marring and abrasion here at that time, and the sword will likely split at that point. So we'll see how far it goes. Yep. Still far, still straight. So I'm not seeing any bending, though that's a little tough through my mask. Can't really tell about the sharpness, but it still seems to have a decent edge. Kasha, everything still seems tight. Still straight. Some light wiggle has developed. All in all, still seems straight. So, we will do some sword v sword contact. This is a stainless steel sword. It's not meant for use, but it's a very brittle, hard steel, and I'm going to whack this sword into it. Again, what I'm expecting, really all bets are off here. If the sword breaks, it's sword on sword contact. You may think that, like, hey, in a battle, swords are going to contact each other. True, but this sword is going to be resting here, braced, and in a way that I would say is not really a fair comparison to another person or an opponent holding a sword. It's going to be a lot more shock because this is going to be pretty stationary, and most of that force is going to be absorbed by this blade here. So it's not an apples to apples comparison with how a sword would perform against an opponent in a battle or a war of some sort. One strike and then show the damage. You can see it's biting in pretty deep. Now, it didn't break, but obviously there's some pretty, I would call this chipping. The edge isn't rolled off. This section has chipped off. Now for more of that. Fittings are still pretty tight. developed a slightly larger rattle. Nothing overly significant. This would still work. Okay, given it several strikes, lots of damage to the blade. Now I'm going to flip it over, strike again. Pretty much as predicted, the sword broke. Strike again. Now you get. Quick view. The grain structure, I guess I don't know. It seems pretty tight to me. All in all, the sword held up as expected. More thoughts in just a moment. Let's just do a quick recap of what I did. Beating a sword against a tree is very abusive. I want to point out that the handle survived remarkably well. The kasha is still on, the ito is still what I wouldn't call necessarily super tight, but about as tight as it was. And the Tsuba and Habaki have developed a slight rattle, but all of that I think could be shored up, at least from this end up, with shims, with some degree of sword type maintenance, a new seppa, something like that could be done to remedy what ails the sword from this end up. Obviously this is not so easy to fix, but in a nutshell, I think it's held up actually pretty well given the testing. Now the sword broke after sword on sword contact, or sword and sword like object contact, and it broke in the spot that I would expect it to break. Now I would have hoped that it took maybe more abuse to do, but realistically I've gotten a little better at breaking these things, and it broke when I expected it to break. It seemed reasonably controlled, and it did what it was supposed to do. I think the sword actually held up remarkably well. At any point in the whacking of a tree, it could have deformed, it could have bent, it could have broken. At any point when striking the sword versus another sword, particularly with as much gusto as I was putting in, it could have cracked, it could have bent, it could have done a lot worse. And it took the recipe to break a sword to break it. Unfortunately, it didn't survive past that, but I think it's done what it's expected to do. And for a sword that's $150, it really doesn't change my mind. I think it's a pretty good value. Given the customization options that you have, given the price point, it seems overall like a good value. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I hope the video has been enjoyable. As always, cheers, and thanks for watching.